Good evening. I'd like to start tonight's meeting with a moment of silence. Since our last meeting, we've lost two really exemplary community members. One is Jack Surratt, who was a longtime principal at Campbell, Mainland, and Seabreeze High School, and then a longtime area superintendent. Won a couple of state basketball championships when he was a teacher and coach, and he passed away on Friday, April 5th. And then just this afternoon, I received an email from former Commissioner Boehm and learned that Reich Hundredmark had passed away. And so Reich last year was honored with the ACE Award, Ormond Beach ACE Award, Achievement in Civic Excellence. He was an amazing member of this community, heavily involved with the Main Street program, and it was a shock to learn that. Commissioner Boehm's words: Reich was one of the mainstays of Ormond Main Street and an unfailing supporter of the city. Although retired, he remained active as a volunteer throughout his life. People like him make the city a better place, and he will be missed. And the same with Jack Surratt. He made the world a better place as well. So if we could just take a moment of silence in both their honors. Thank you very much. And if you would, keep their families in your thoughts and prayers during this time, difficult time for them. I hope you felt welcomed when you came in tonight by Sean Finley, our Deputy City Engineer, and Ned Huta, our IT Manager. They were the greeters this evening. I'd like to introduce the folks who are sitting up in front of you. To my right, your left, Andrew Moss, Assistant City Clerk Lisa Dame, Commissioner Dwight Selby from Zone 1, our Deputy Mayor and Zone 2 Commissioner Troy Kent, and to my left and your right, Commissioner Susan Persis from Zone 3, Commissioner Rob Littleton from Zone 4, City Manager Joyce Shanahan, Assistant City Manager Claire Whitley, our City Attorney Randy Hayes, and for those of you listening online, I'm Mayor Bill Partington. At this time, I'd ask Pastor Dan Cregan from Rima Ridge Baptist Church to give us the invocation. If you'd please rise, and that'll be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
I invite you to please bow your heads with me in prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you that your Son, the Lord Jesus Christ, created the world, as the Gospel of John chapter 1 and verse 3 says. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. We also thank you for the truth of the Gospel of John chapter 3 and verse 16, that everlasting life is available to any person by believing, accepting, and receiving by faith your Son as personal Savior. We remember that we are instructed by the Apostle Paul in 1 Timothy chapter 2 verses 1 and 2 to pray, speaking of civil authority, for all that are in authority. We therefore ask for your blessings upon each of our City Commission members this evening, as well as upon Mayor Bill Partington. May you give them wisdom and direction as they guide the affairs of Ormond Beach this night and into the future. Heavenly Father, we also pray for your comfort upon the Surratt family and the passing of Jack. We pray for your comfort upon the Hundredmark family in the passing of Reich. And we pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I always feel like it's time for karaoke when I get handed this thing. If it's James Taylor, I can handle it. Any other song, it's not going to be good. Let me start off with a proclamation presentation for our local American Legion, Post 267. And Frank Sterbling, if you'll come forward, and anyone else you want to bring up, we're gonna get a picture. I've got a American Legion 100th anniversary clad-proof coin from the United States Mint that I want to present to you. The United States Mint did a beautiful coin set honoring the American Legion. I was so impressed with it. I thought it would be nice to present you with one, so that is for you. I can close my eyes and go back to 1984, and I'm standing in the well of the Florida House at the Boys State program put on by the American Legion. That is something that a young man from Ormond Beach got to do because of caring gentlemen like yourselves that participate in fun programs like that, educational programs. It was a 4 or 5 day experience, and I learned a lot about government, and it just spurred my interest even further. And so it's my pleasure to honor you and recognize you during this 100-year celebration time. I'm going to give you the proclamation while I read it to you. Whereas the American Legion has been a staunch advocate for veterans and their families since 1919, and whereas the American Legion was founded on the 4 pillars of care for veterans: a strong national defense, Americanism, and children and youth, and whereas the American Legion has played a leading role in initiatives and breakthroughs that have affected the lives of Americans in every community, from U.S. flag code to the GI Bill. And whereas Ormond Beach's Post 267 has fulfilled the Legion's mission since 1950 through programs such as Boys State, Scouting, and Veterans Outreach. And whereas the American Legion is celebrating its centennial this year, 2018-2019, now therefore I, Bill Partington, Mayor of the City of Ormond Beach, Florida, along with the entire Commission, do hereby proclaim March 15th, 2019 as a day to recognize the American Legion in the City of Ormond Beach, and urge all our residents to join with me on this day as we recognize the American Legion for their dedication to our community. Thank you all very much. No, we're good, we're good. We're good, thanks. So you spent, are you good? Good deal. 4 boys this year, and then Girls State, I'm sure you do 2. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Yep, we appreciate all you do, and congratulations. Have a great 100-year celebration. It's year long. It's not just one day. Thank you. I've got a little something for everybody tonight, and I'm going to ask Abby Johnson from the St. Johns River Water Management District to come forward. Abby, it's not real exciting, but I've got some water for you. That's right. And we appreciate you, the cooperation between our organizations. They're 2 governmental entities. it's an amazing product that ends up being created for our residents. I think every drop counts is the motto at the district. You're in Palatka, but with your outreach, it feels like you're right next door. And so I don't know, do you have an educator's background or agriculture? You do such a great job at all the events that you go to, and I feel like you were a classroom teacher. You present so well and provide so much information. And a lot of times you bring us checks, which we don't mind. We don't mind at all. So we are recognizing Water Conservation Month, and water is a basic and essential need of every living creature. Clean, safe, and sustainable water resources and supplies are vital to the city of Ormond Beach. And the state of Florida water management districts work together with Volusia County and Ormond Beach to increase awareness about the importance of water conservation. Ormond Beach and the state of Florida have designated April, typically a dry month when water demands are most acute, as Water Conservation Month, and it's a time to educate citizens about how they can help save precious water resources. Ormond Beach residents are environmentally conscious anyway, and so we're committed to setting a good example for our citizens, and every business, every industry, every school, every citizen can make a difference when it comes to conserving water. So I'm proud on behalf of the city, the entire commission, to recognize Water Conservation Month and urge all our residents, citizens, and businesses to help protect our precious water resources by practicing water-saving measures and becoming more aware of the needs to save water. And I'll present that to you as well. I'm really glad that you're here tonight because we have a group coming up next that is keenly aware of how important clean water is, and they're actually working hard to make that happen. And I think you had a few words you wanted to say, so I'll share.
I'll be brief. Thank you very much, Mayor and Commissioners, for having me here tonight. I don't take the opportunity lightly. Thank you so much for leading by example and issuing this Water Conservation Proclamation. We love your participation in everything, whether it's cost share or proclamations. Thank you for helping us get the word out, because conservation is really the easiest and free tool that we have at our disposal. We can all save water. It doesn't cost you a thing. Does it cost you a thing to turn that faucet off while you brush your teeth? It doesn't cost you a thing. I'll save my corny jokes for later. But I wanted to thank you. You all are a pleasure to work with. Thank you for having such a delightful staff. Ms. Dom, Mr. Moss, fantastic folks. Ms. Shanahan, thank you for your patience. Always, always. I could go on, but I want to keep my remarks brief. Thank you very much. Please feel free to follow us on social media, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, whatever, Snapchat, whatever else is out there. We post tips every day for both indoor and outdoor ways to save water. Thank you so much.
And now if the UCF Knights would come up. National champions, did I get that right? Got it right. I don't think there's any question. Awesome. Just come on up and surround me and face out to the audience so they can see how impressive our future is, how exciting is. Who's Linda? Did she make it?
Unfortunately.
Okay, Linda Walters is the instructor, but Deputy Mayor, can I ask you to come down and hand those out? Got just a little token of appreciation for all the hard work you guys have put in on the Tomoka State Park Shoreline Restoration Project. A couple weeks ago, I had the opportunity to go out and volunteer, and they work hard. I'll tell you what, my plan was to show up and take some pictures, and within 15 minutes, I was digging holes and carrying bags of empty oyster shells, placing them on the shoreline. but I don't know how many people came out. You probably have an exact count. 92 people showed up to volunteer that day. That's how many people care about our environment, want to make a positive difference in our community, and doing it right at the headwaters of the Tomoka River, or the mouth of the Tomoka River, I guess would be the more appropriate thing to say, by a project that's meant to improve water quality, is really the best way, one of the best ways to do it. And so let me read this proclamation to you. Whereas the University of Central Florida is dedicated to academic excellence of our diverse undergraduate population and focuses on the importance of service learning, where students learn course content while sharing their knowledge and passion with the community. And whereas 14 undergraduate students in the spring 2019 Principles of Marine Biology class tackled the real-life coastal issue of protecting eroding shorelines surrounding prehistoric shell middens at Tomoka State Park by first studying and then leading a community living shoreline stabilization event. And whereas 92 people, including numerous Boy Scouts, participated in this event on March 24th, 2019, that included interactive displays, oyster storytelling, yoga, getting wet and dirty to stabilize 300 feet of shoreline, and thank you gifts created by the students. And whereas this student team made a major contribution to protecting our environment with the support of the UCF Coastal and Estuarine Ecology Lab, UCF Honors College, UCF Office of Undergraduate Research, the Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission, the Florida Coastal Conservation Association, the Indian River Lagoon Program, and the Department of Environmental Protection, Florida State Parks. I think I got all those. And now, therefore, I, Bill Partington, and you guys had to get permits from all those folks. Congratulations on that. On behalf of the entire City Commission, do hereby proclaim today, April 16th, 2019, as UCF Tomoka State Park Shoreline Stabilization Day in the city of Ormond Beach, and urge all residents to join me on this day in paying tribute to the stabilization team as outstanding representatives of UCF and the city of Ormond Beach. Congratulations to all of you.
I just want to say thank you so much. I know that me and all my peers are deeply humbled that you guys appreciate our work so much, and we hope that for many years to come, we'll be out there saving the shores.
Did you get the picture, Charlene? You want us in a little closer? Particularly the fact that you were teaching the children and adults, for that matter, that were there. You took the time to do that and care. It was a lot of work that got done. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it. Yep. Appreciate it. Thanks. Good to see you.
Much for organizing this and also recognizing the importance of protecting the children.
Thank you. Andrew, I'm just checking, just one card for audience remarks? Okay, thank you. We will move to audience remarks, and I have one card from Elizabeth Kemp. How are you? Good to see you. If you'll come right up to the podium there. Right on the other side there, ma'am. Yep, if you would face us, and the microphone's right there if you need it.
Testing.
Great.
Thank you. I'd like to speak to everybody. And my name is Elizabeth Kempf. I'm an author, journalist.
Elizabeth?
Yes, I have to speak to you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Just please address
Okay,
us.
right,
And
okay.
they're listening intently back
All
there.
right, author, journalist, poet, environmentalist. So I'm very pleased to follow such a group and such a proclamation, and I admire very much the work that they've been doing. And my home backs onto Tomoka State Park. There's a little city land, there's a right-of-way and so forth, but that's why I came to live in Ormond Beach. I brought with me, but it's not enough for all of you, a bottle of Blue Moon, and I have to turn around to show you this. And on this bottle, there are the states and the places that this can be recycled. And so there are many states. Florida, to my knowledge, is not yet among them, unless you can enlighten me. I lived in Switzerland for many years, and so one of the things that concerns me, and one of the issues, is recycling. And recycling, I'll start with glass, I'll focus small. So I was surprised to receive in my mailbox a notice that glass would no longer be recycled. So I'd like to know where we can take our bottles, if anybody knows. Where could we take the bottles? What has the solution been in the interim? Is there any solution?
Not that I'm aware of. I know our city manager is working on something, but we don't have the final details
Right now,
on
we
that.
don't. We're working on different options, but right now, there are no options.
Okay, well, I'd like to tell you that I moved here from Switzerland, and Switzerland has had a history of recycling for decades. And the only other place I lived in the United States, besides Santa Barbara most recently, Switzerland, and here most recently was Santa Barbara, California. I keep wanting to turn around. And Santa Barbara had a recycling center, and they recycled aluminum cans, magazines, glass, office paper, plastic. There was a huge list. They had a recycling center that paid for itself, paid for the whole Community Environmental Council, for which I worked on solar energy projects when I worked there. And the Marburg Recycling Center started in 1936. So I'm here to make a recommendation, and I see you're working on that we begin not only to recycle in such a way that it's costing money to the community, to the city, to the county, but that it begins to pay for itself. And that requires voluntary efforts on the part of citizens. In Switzerland, they are so rigorous about recycling that they have a garbage police. You have to take, and believe me, whoops, there's my 3 minutes. I'm not recommending we have a clamp down, but I'm recommending that we begin this initiative as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Yep. We will move on to the approval of minutes. They've been sent to the commission for review, also posted on the city's website. Any additions, deletions, or corrections? I've just got one. The deputy mayor was kind enough last meeting to recognize Pierce Billings for singing the national anthem, and his name was spelled wrong, which is important to a young man, and so it's Pearce is the correct spelling. Just wanted to put that one in there. And with that, so long as there's no objection to approval, we will deem those with that one minor correction approved. And that brings us to the consent agenda. Docket item number 7. Does anyone wish to pull anything from the consent agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Thank you. Lisa, please call the vote.
Commissioner Selby?
Yes.
Commissioner Kent?
Yes.
Commissioner Persis?
Yes.
Commissioner Littleton?
Yes.
Mayor Partington?
Yes. Thank you. And now would be the appropriate time if any member of the commission wanted to comment on any of the consent agenda items. Commissioner Persis.
Yeah, I just would like to say I'm very excited that we're going to get some new and improved technology in the city. It's always important to keep your technology up. It's changing every day, so I'm glad the city's doing that. And I'm happy to see that we're looking at landscape improvements on Granada. It's such a pretty area, so I just wanted to comment on that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. All right. We'll move to public hearings, and I will open the public hearings. Lisa, please read 8A.
Ordinance number 2019-13, an ordinance amending Chapter 2, District and General Regulations, Article 6, Overlay Districts, Section 2-71, Historic Districts and Landmarks of the Land Development Code by removing the property located at 56 North Beach Street, the Ormond Beach Union Church, from the Ormond Beach Historic Landmarks list, repealing all inconsistent ordinances or parts thereof, providing for severability, and setting forth an effective date. This is ordinance number 2019-13, read by title only.
Thank you, Lisa. I'll ask our planning director, Stephen Spraker, to give us a brief introduction on this item.
Good evening, Steve Spraker, Planning Department. This is a request to remove the address at 56 North Beach Street from the local historic landmark designation list. The property is not historic by age. The property appraiser shows that the building was constructed in 1970s. There was some conversation going through the process with the HLPB that there may be portions of the building that were historic. So both the Historic Landmark Preservation Board and Planning Board recommended approval of removing it from the list. They did suggest if it were ever to be demolished, there'd be a plaque put on the site recognizing the history of it. It would still have review, so it's still within the Lincoln Overlay District, and it would still have, depending on what the final use is, some review before the Planning Board and City Commission. Staff is recommending approval, as are the advisory boards. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephen. I don't have any cards. Any questions for Stephen? Just need a motion in a second.
I move approval of ordinance number 2019-13.
Second.
Any discussion? Lisa, please call the vote.
Commissioner Kent?
Yes.
Commissioner Persis?
Yes.
Commissioner Littleton?
Yes.
Commissioner Selby?
Yes.
Mayor Partington?
Yes, and I will close the public hearings. We'll move on to first reading of ordinances. And Lisa, if you would please read 9A.
Ordinance number 2019-14, an ordinance approving the final plat for Pineland PRD subdivision, Phase 1 subdivision, a planned residential development, establishing conditions and expiration date of approval and setting forth an effective date. This is ordinance number 2019-14, read by title only.
Thank you, Lisa. I don't have any cards on 9A. Stephen, if you would please just give us a brief synopsis of this item. I think you could cover the next one as well.
Correct. So, again, Stephen Spraker, Planning Department. This is the Pineland subdivision at the Airport Road is just off the screen, and then this would be Pineland Trail coming around. The area in yellow is Phase 1. The area in orange is Phase 2, and the area in green is Phase 3. So they've gone through a subdivision process. Can you go to the next slide, please? So they've gone through a subdivision process that included a planned residential rezoning that was approved by the Planning Board and City Commission. Then they went through a preliminary plat, which was the detailed construction drawings. Now they are under construction, proposing to bond the remaining improvements. So this is the final step that would allow them to then subdivide land. They are under construction, and they hope to be done hopefully by the end of the year.
Very well. Any questions for Stephen on 9A or B? Thank you, Stephen. Again, I don't have any cards on either of these items. Just need a motion.
Move for approval, Mayor.
Second.
Any discussion? All right. Lisa, please call the vote.
Commissioner Persis?
Yes.
Commissioner Littleton?
Yes.
Commissioner Selby?
Yes.
Commissioner Kent?
Yes.
Mayor Partington?
Yes. And 9B.
Ordinance number 2019-15, an ordinance approving the final plat for the Pineland PRD subdivision phases 2 and 3, subdivision, a planned residential development, establishing conditions and expiration date of approval, and setting forth an effective date. This is ordinance number 2019-15, read by title only.
Thank you, Lisa. I don't have any cards.
Mr. Mayor, move approval item 9B.
Second.
Any discussion? Lisa, please call the vote.
Commissioner Littleton,
Yes.
Commissioner Selby,
Yes.
Commissioner Kent,
Yes.
Commissioner Persis,
Yes.
Mayor Partington.
Yes. And that brings us to resolutions, and we are on 10A.
Resolution number 2019-86, a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of a payment in lieu of taxes pilot agreement between the County of Volusia, the City of Ormond Beach, and Antares of Ormond Beach, LLC, including its affiliates, ALMC Property Investments, LLC, and JRB Partners, LLC, as good and valuable consideration, and as an inducement to encourage the county to provide host jurisdiction approval under the Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act, authorizing Capital Trust Agency to issue up to $35 million in tax-exempt public bonds in favor of the Antares entities to finance the development and construction of a private for-profit senior assisted living facility to be located at 720 Granada Boulevard in the Ormond Beach, Florida, and setting forth an effective date. This is resolution number 2019-86, read by title only.
Thank you, Lisa. I have one card. It's from Michael Woods. Hey, Michael.
Good evening, and for the record, Michael Woods, law firm Cobb Cole, 231 North Woodland Boulevard, over in DeLand, here today on behalf of Antares. And good to see you all here today. If you will recall, this item is tied to the TEFRA hearing process, and I think you saw me appear before you probably back in November or December when the request had been pulled from jurisdiction here and going over to the county. Long story short, as we've been working our way through with the county, and we are currently scheduled to be considered for our final reading at County Council on May 7th, we had our initial TEFRA, initial hearing by the IDA board back on Valentine's Day. As part of that, the motion for approval at that time made by Mr. Sharples basically instructed us to go forward and engage in pilot agreement discussions with the county. Again, the policy in place right now with respect to pilot agreements and the TEFRA hearing not yet settled. And then also to move forward to provide appropriate financial statements to the satisfaction of county staff. We are working with both county legal, with the county economic department, and specifically with direct conversation with the county manager to resolve those issues as well. All of that is to say, notwithstanding some of the objections I had raised earlier, we are moving forward to present to you a pilot agreement that has been drafted. We are expecting still some additional comments from county staff. As drafted by us as the applicants, it was initially drafted with the county being the primary signatory to it because they are the ones that handle the taxation globally, not only for the city but also for your taxing districts. If ECHO version 2.0 ever gets adopted, we want to make sure this captures that as well. But the critical point, and Mr. Hayes can probably weigh in on this, is that with the pilot agreement moving forward, so long as the bonds in question get issued, this city and the county will stand in as if the tax exemption, well, let me state that again. Our applicant is a for-profit company. The concern that was raised, if you will recall, was what happens if a for or not-for-profit comes in. There is no clean, easy way in the default policy standpoint to get there, but in this instance, there is case law, and it is cited to in the preamble, that authorizes a condition of a TEFRA hearing to have this pilot agreement. All that is to say that should this ever get sold, there will be a mechanism in place for a nonprofit to still continue to have to pay for profit as if that exemption was not present. I know it's a little wordy. There is still some tweaking being done, but substantively, I think it is where it needs to be. And as I said, it will be heard at the County Council on May 7th. There was some request from staff to see if we can roll that for another meeting, because I know you guys don't meet until May 7th, and this will be a morning meeting. But we are really, as the applicants, very tied to that date. So I hope you understand that if I had the ability to, I would try to roll it, but we really have to stick to the May 7th date. And if you have any specific questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Anybody have questions for Michael? Michael, you've been a gentleman throughout the whole process. I appreciate that, and I know you and Randy have been back and forth and communicated quite a bit, so, as well as county staff and other governmental entities as well. But it's a very complicated, hard to understand issue for a lot of folks, but you guys have been in the weeds, I guess you'd say, trying to work it out, and so we appreciate that.
Thank you.
I don't have any questions. Just need, I don't know, Randy, did you want to put anything on the record about
Yes, sir, I do. I'm not going to say a lot. I could speak probably all night to this. So I'm not going to do that. Essentially, what we're asking for is approval of the form of the agreement and the substantial form that it's in now. It's very much kind of a working document. The changes we've made to it are shown in underline and strike-through format. We typically don't bring things to you unless they're clean and they've been cleanly worked through, but we just didn't have a lot of time in this instance. We have requested from county staff, through county staff, that the final action before county council, currently scheduled for May 7th, be moved to at least May 21st, kind of give us an opportunity to work through this. The applicant has their reasons why they would prefer to go forward, but it's really up to the county staff. So you all don't meet again until after May 7th, so that didn't give me a whole lot of time to get much of anything together. So we have made our revisions to the draft agreement that we received from the applicant. Our goal is to protect the tax base and the taxing authorities. We believe that it does that in substantially the form that it's in now. I know that the county attorney's office actually has been working very well with this, and we're very pleased with that. They have some additional tweaks or changes that they would like to make, but I haven't received them yet. So some of the things, well, I'll highlight some of the most important key points of this agreement. The term is in perpetuity, so it's going to go on forever, which means that we'll continue to receive the ad valorem tax revenue essentially forever. And it's 100% of the ad valorem taxes, so it's not a fraction of it. There's a default provision in there wherein if the payments are not made, the taxing authorities have the ability to lien the property, file foreclosure. So we feel like our interests are pretty well protected in that instance. Our interests are superior to all others, including the bond issuer, mortgage holders. So we're comfortable in that respect as well. This is a covenant that's going to run with the land, so it's going to be binding on the current property owner and any successors in interest. We've included some provisions in there, to create third-party beneficiary status for the school board and other taxing authorities. That's a provision that we're continuing to massage a little bit. Some of the changes I understand that the county would prefer to make would be to make the county the only signator to the document with the applicant, as opposed to all of the other taxing authorities, because it's just cleaner and less cumbersome that way. I don't necessarily have a problem with that, as long as we're all included as the third-party beneficiaries and we have the absolute right to enforce the terms of the agreement. But the form that you had before you is the one that I had modified over the weekend, or late last week, that shows Ormond Beach as the signator to the document. So that's a change that we might modify a little bit. Some of the other provisions that we might want to consider including, and we can talk more with the county staff about this, is requiring a document review before all of the documents go over to the bond issuer, just to make sure that there's consistency with what they're issuing and the pilot agreement, to make sure that there's no inconsistencies anywhere. I I don't think that's going to be a problem, but again, I'm a lawyer, so I don't trust anybody, as does Mr. Wood, I suspect. So we would ask for your approval of this agreement this evening in the form that it is substantially in now, and with the understanding that I'll have authority to kind of modify and tweak it, as long as the underlying purpose of what we're trying to achieve is consistent with the overall approval. I don't think anything's crazy is going to go on. If it does, I'll certainly bring it back here. But I think our goal is to preserve the tax base and the tax revenue for all of the taxing authorities, and we're happy that the applicant has been willing to work with us in that regard. So that's it. Unless you all have questions for me, I'll let you.
Any questions for Randy? No. I think we're ready then. Thank you. Thank you, Michael.
And I want to thank Randy. It has been a heavy lifting load, both for the city and the county, and it's very appreciative. And he is absolutely right. That formatting issue, I think we're going to be okay with. You know, I don't see the county providing anything that would be detrimental to the interest of the city whatsoever. They've worked together pretty well in lockstep. And overall, the applicant, they're excited to come here. You know, we're looking forward to bringing this project before you. It's an exciting project. It's a benefit to this community directly. And presuming we get everything ironed out, you know, we hope we can have your vocal support at our May 7th hearing. You know, that's the main goal, is to provide this here so that we all kind of sing to the same hymnal. So I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Yep. All right.
Mayor, if you're looking for a motion, I'd be happy to make one.
Thank you, Commissioner Selby.
I'd like to move that we accept this draft agreement in its form, allowing the city attorney to modify it as long as it maintains the principle and intent of the draft before us.
Second.
Perfect. Any discussion? Further questions? Lisa, please call the vote.
Commissioner Selby?
Yes.
Commissioner Kent?
Yes.
Commissioner Persis?
Yes.
Commissioner Littleton?
Yes.
Mayor Partington?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Now we move to 11. These are staff action. It's a staff action item, and it is the half-cent sales tax priorities and projects discussion. I have 3 cards, and we will start with Lori Tolland. How are you? Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Lori Tolland, and I live at 5 Broad River Road. And I want to thank you, first of all, for your service to our city. And I really sincerely appreciate your dedication and your efforts to keep our city beautiful and valuable. And if you don't mind, I am going to read my statement because, believe it or not, I am shy. So I am going to read. I stand before you asking that we as a city become a leader in the crusade to protect our water's quality and quantity. Ormond Beach is very unique in that it sits upon a precious bubble that is located between the Halifax River, the Atlantic Ocean, and Mosquito Lagoon. This aquifer is endangered primarily by development, pesticides, and aging septic tanks. Septic tanks, long considered safe and effective, are increasingly seen as a major contributor to coastal pollution. In recent years, there's been a tremendous effort and collaboration addressing water quality issues within Volusia County. In 1999, Volusia County Health Department specifically provided a very detailed report of septic tanks in our communities and analyzed areas that would be best suited for septic system use and connection to a sewer system. Many areas in Ormond Beach, especially the North Peninsula, where there are many aging septic tanks and saltwater intrusion, would benefit when connected to a sewer system and septic tank removal. Ormond Beach made a commitment to support water quality documented in the Volusia government's Water Resources Compact a few years ago. If we use a targeted approach, work in collaboration with the county, the state, federal government, I know I aim high, and possibly we can make a difference. We have the state behind us now with a newly defined water quality initiative. We have environmentally friendly advocates in the city, and it appears that the polling for the half-cent surtax project list clearly confirms citizens' desire to address the Northern Peninsula for septic tank conversion. I ask that you please consider taking the first step to protect our water quality and commit to addressing these aging septic tanks, particularly on the Northern Peninsula. I think we need to be proactive, and I think we can take the lead. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Peggy Farmer.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Peggy Farmer, 349 Notting Hill Street in Ormond Beach. I guess you can tell there's been some talk among the community about this possibility of making some progress with the North Peninsula septic to sewer project. It was such a pleasant reading to see that it was number one in the water quality section of the polling. And I hope that means that more and more of our residents are realizing that our river, it's not Ormond by the Sea's river, it's not Ormond Beach's, it's everyone's river, is getting increased pollution, and it's only going to get worse. It is the governor's main issue this year, so that's why I'm excited that we're addressing this in discussion. I did notice that there was another health department report in 2013 that actually graded all the areas in the county that had septic tanks. And the higher the grade, the worse the situation was. And so Ormond by the Sea received the worst grade in the county. Its score was 32, and it was based on the age of the tanks, the density, which is where we have 5,000 septic tanks in Ormond by the Sea, the water table, different areas that they looked at. So we realized that Ormond by the Sea is one of the areas that needs the most attention. Tidewater and Broadwater, their score, and they have septic tanks, their score was 3. So compare 3 to 32, you realize that there are a lot of deficiencies of the Ormond by the Sea area. But personally, I did witness with the North US 1 beautification effort how much you can get done when you work together, when you bring the county in, when you bring the state in. And it's a long, slow process. But I think we showed with the North US 1 corridor that you can work together and you can accomplish great progress. And in regards to the North US 1, I was thinking about that coming over here. We could have looked the other way when we realized Cheaters was there and the Outlaws motorcycle gang was there. It was all under the county jurisdiction, and the city could have said, well, it's not our problem. But we didn't do that because we care about the quality of life in Ormond Beach. So we persevered. I'll never forget Randy Hayes. 5 years he fought for jurisdiction improvements. And look what happens when we work together. I think it's time for us to do this again, and someone has to take the first step for progress to be made in the North Peninsula. And I really think, since it's part of our utility service area, the city could be the one to get started. Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy. Nancy Lumen.
Hi there. Hi, everyone. Nancy Lohman, 1210 John Anderson Drive, Ormond Beach, Ormond in the Sea, Ormond Beach, Florida. As a North Peninsula resident, I have wished and wondered for 24 years if we would ever be able to retire our septic tanks and hook into Ormond Beach sewer system and stop the devastation of the water quality issue that we're contributing to in the North Peninsula, both with our intercoastal waterway and with our aquifer. Ormond by the Sea, my home, is ranked in the top 3 worst in the county. And we have 4,000 homes there. That's compared to 261 homes in the other two areas that are equally as bad or pretty much equally as bad. And so the thing is, with 4,000 homes, we stand a pretty good chance, unfortunately, of keeping that record, right? And so we need help, and we need to start thinking about a long-term plan. And I know it's complex, but with the state of Florida saying that water quality is, they've articulated that it's important. I think that Ormond Beach, all of you, are poised to take a leadership role in helping the city of Ormond Beach, the county, Volusia County, St. John's Water Management, and the state of Florida to create a plan, have a vision. I know it's complex, but move forward. And I think if not now, when is my feeling about that. So I'm urging you tonight to, just give that some thought to make that a priority. And I will do my part and encourage others in the North Peninsula to encourage Ed Kelly and our County Representative Heather Post to work with you and to make sure that the county works as a team with you. And lastly, I can't help myself, but I just wanted to thank you so much for the anti-tethering dog legislation. So thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. All right, Commission, that brings it back to us for discussion on half-cent sales tax priorities and projects discussion. I think you've all had the opportunity to read through the agenda packet item, and there's a listing there that might facilitate our discussion. I don't know if we want to kind of go category by category, or Joyce, do you want to?
So, first of all, this is a list that we have received and staff worked up, and we conducted 2 public meetings, and we've had an online polling up live since February 15th. So we've gathered input judiciously from the public. There was also a News Journal public town hall meeting that also talked about this issue. What I would like you to first understand is that this list is sort of a generalized list in such that as funding comes available, things might shift around on the list because you would want to leverage those dollars. So let's just say that there was transportation funding available now that might not be available 3 years from now. You might want to accelerate that, or a trail project, because you want to be able to leverage those dollars with other partners, whether it be the federal government, the state government, or some other entity like St. John's River Water Management District and the like. So what we have outlined here is how the polling shook out. We have broken them into project areas, and if you want to go through those and take a look at those issues in those areas and give us some guidance, but we're looking for some consensus. We're not going to ask you to vote, but we're looking for some general consensus on this list so that we have some guiding document. I will tell you that should the sales tax be approved, every single one of these projects will have to come back before the council through the budget process and through the payment and construction process. So you'll have another opportunity, several opportunities to take a look at these issues.
And did you cover, Joyce, the fact that some of these are moving targets as a result of multiple potential funding sources?
Exactly.
Okay.
For example, Hand Avenue, that was on our list, but it wasn't on the county list. So we asked the county to put that on their list. We also asked the county to put on the North Penn, because that wasn't on their list. I have not heard back from them yet. But I think there's opportunities for partnerships here, and those will develop and change over time as federal funding and state funding become available.
Thank you. So, Commission, I don't know if you want to take it kind of project by project. There's 4 different categories, and try to maybe state, we could go individually, just 1, 2, 3, 4, and state what our preferences are. Staff, I think, is listening and taking notes, and there won't be a formal vote, but that'll at least give them an idea for planning purposes of where we're at. So, Commissioner Persis, I'll let you jump in
I
there.
think it might be a good idea to just take these 4 categories and prioritize those, and then we can look at each one if that's what we choose to do. Listening to Lori, Nancy, and Peggy talk tonight, I think the septic tank conversion is, like, to me, the biggest priority, and I think the citizens out there agree. I've heard from so many about the same thing. So I would just want that just to come out right now, that I am in favor of that.
All right, Commission? Anyone else wish to comment on that? I mean, I'd point out road projects had 660 total votes. Water quality projects had less than half that at 291. I know 3 people spoke on water quality tonight, but and the original intent of the half cent really was laser focused on transportation or road projects. Water quality was added later, I think primarily for Edgewater, because they were having such problems with the Indian River Lagoon. And certainly water quality is important, but I'm worried we may lose some of the forward movement if we start shifting the focus of what it was originally intended for. But happy to hear other thoughts.
Commissioner, Commissioner Persis, I thank you for your comments, and I thank the ladies who spoke this evening. You all know I'm pretty passionate about the septic to sewer on the North Peninsula. But I think, Mayor, I agree with you. I think the road projects would be my first category. I would put water quality second. But I think what's interesting about this is I actually believe that while I think it's really important to try to establish what we think the greatest priorities are and, lay those out, because people want to know that. What are we thinking? It helps them to decide whether or not they want to support this tax, okay? I honestly believe that it is a moving target. I could very easily support the Hand Avenue extension as my number one priority, as the citizens have done overall. But that's I understand it's like a $35 million project. So it could be years before we start that. So even though that's our number one thing, we might not spend a dime on that for several years. So but I do think it's important for the voters to understand how we're thinking and, kind of where our heads are at. But I just kind of wanted to lay that out there. And as far as the septic to sewer, there's a lot of potential partners in that project that, St. John's Water Management, we can get a pretty significant grant from them to help on the construction. The state is available to help with that, etc. So, we may not need to invest much of this if this tax passes on that project, but it is clearly a high priority, and I think that again the residents would want to know where our heads at. So I would put roads, water, stormwater, and trails. I'd do that. I would do it in that order: 1, 2, 3, 4.
Thank you, Commissioner Selby. And I could almost live with leaving stormwater and trails out of it, just so that it's kind of laser focused on roads and water. Not confuse the issue with some of these other smaller projects. But if we are, Commissioner Selby, going to include them, I would rank them. You had stormwater third.
Yes.
And then trail last.
I'm comfortable with your rationale. In other words, a shorter list that 2 categories. I'm comfortable with that.
Roads and water.
Yeah.
And Commissioner Persis?
I just wanted to say that, I think about 10 or 15 years ago, the city tried to do this conversion, and it was very expensive then. Now, because I think there's more connections and so forth underground, it's not quite as costly. I think it might cost maybe, in the total, maybe $3,000 to $4,000 per home now. And if we had some, I don't know, St. John's helped us, and there was some kind of, they might pay half, and we paid half, or the owner paid half. Doing that, I think it's really is cost efficient, and what it would really do to help our river and everything. I think we really need to look at that. I definitely know we need to work on the roads. That is a situation. The Hand Avenue, I'm in for totally in that, but I just really don't want this septic to sewer to fall by the wayside at all. I just want to say that.
And Joyce, the figure I'd heard was $15,000 per home? Do you have a number?
Well, when you're looking at just connection fees and impact fees, it's about $3,000 to $5,000. But when you're actually looking at the cost to dig up the road, put the pipe in, I think that for the first phase, it's about $9 million plus engineering costs around
For the
there,
North
7 to
Pen-
9.
For the North Peninsula?
For just phase one, which is about 700 homes.
Commissioner Little.
Sure, I would prefer if it would be focused on roads. I mean, Hand Avenue extension, Williamson Boulevard widening, Timber Creek widening, and sort of Pineland Trail improvements. That's all sort of on the west side, west of 95 area, or helping the 95 area along there, which is where all the development's going to be in the future. However, you do have to realize that the state has made a priority for water, the governor has, and according to an Ormond Observer article today, though I have not read it, just an hour ago, the Volusia County was giving preference to water. So the money might come from there, and they're going to want us to spend the money and look like we're doing something with it. So water might be the way to go.
Thank you, Commissioner Littleton. Deputy Mayor Kent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I've said it before, and I bet I'll say it again. I am so proud that we are all environmentalists up here, and we take our community seriously, and we put our money where our mouth is. I just read where the city's going to be giving away 500 trees on Earth Day, and I know the city's partnering with the Garden Club of Daytona Beach for Arbor Day. They're going to be planting trees. All super positive, wonderful, wholesome, great things. And I'm just going to go ahead and put this out there. Road projects, number 1 for me. Water quality projects, number 2. Stormwater, number 3. Trail projects, number 4. Let me start with road projects. My ranking: Hand Avenue extension, Hand Avenue widening, I-95 US 1 interchange. I'll leave those 3 of where I am with those, but that's where I am with the road projects. I am excited that our governor and our state legislators are so concerned about water quality, and a perfect night for us to be talking about it, especially since it's Water Conservation Month. And, you know, we had the head of St. John's River Water Management District here this evening, and you were able to give her a bottle of water and a proclamation. Now, I was born in 1975, and that Granada Bridge was a drawbridge. Mom and Dad used to drive me over for T-ball games at Nova Rec, because Sports Complex wasn't there. And sometimes we'd have to wait for that drawbridge, and I might be a couple minutes late to practice, but Coach was okay with that. Now, my mother got here in the early 50s, and she tells stories that I want to live again. That Halifax River, you could see to the bottom of it. There was grass growing on the bottom. Take a little walk across over there to the public library, Ormond Beach Library, which is one of the busiest, if not the busiest library in Volusia County, and take a look at the fishermen in the early 1900s and look at their catch from across the street here, where Mr. Leary, who was here a moment ago, where it sells bait. Impressive, unbelievable. My grandfather, after he was at Pearl Harbor, flew bombing raids in B-17s over in Europe. When he came over here and decided to live in Ormond by the Sea on Roberta Road, and was Builder of the Year, and back then they did put in septic tanks, and they were supposedly safe and effective. And people today will tell you that if a septic tank is put in correctly and is treated correctly, it's safe and effective. And we know that a sewer system is the best option every time, every single time. But I want that water to have grass on the bottom. I want my son Wyatt and my future grandkids to catch redfish like this out of it. I want that place to be pristine again. But before my grandfather died, he said the problem was Dunlawton Bridge. When they put Dunlawton in, they stopped the flow of the water, because he was a commercial shrimper. And he sold his business the year after because everything changed. The humans changed it. They changed the flow of that water. And when they did, it was no longer able to flush itself the way it always had. So, I am all for converting every septic tank that we can. I'm saying it publicly right now. I'm all for it. Yes, I'm in. After we take care of Ormond Beach residents first. We have 560 homes in Ormond Beach. They're residents. They pay city taxes. They're ours. They're our residents. 560 are on a septic tank right now in Ormond Beach. And I don't have a good answer, and I like good answers. I don't have a good answer. When one of them asks me, why are you spending city money on non-city residents to fix their problem before you fix our problem? I don't have a good answer, and I like to have good answers. I said it publicly. I'm all for converting every septic tank that I can. I'm not a NIMBY, not in my backyard kind of guy. I'm a grab that bull by the horns and let's make it happen kind of guy. But I need to be able to look at those 560 residents, which none of them are in my zone. None of them. We've got Hidden Hills. We have Fiesta Heights. And in those, you've got the subdivisions of Knollwood Estates, Broderick, Tidewater, Durrance Acres, Broadwater, Magnolia Oak, Winding Woods, Bonita Place, you know. So once we get that squared away first, and I think it's a priority, because Ormond Beach residents are who we represent up here. That's who put us in these chairs. Rented chairs for a short amount of time. So I'm in, Mr. Mayor. Let's get 560 to 0. Let's come up, the five of us, let's come up with a plan on how we get the money from the governor's office, from the state legislators. Let's get that money for Ormond Beach residents, and then I'm all in with converting the North Peninsula and anybody else near us that we can help, because sewer systems are superior to septic systems. Thank you.
Good deal, Mr. Mayor. Commissioner Selby.
Thank you. Commissioner Ken, I appreciate your passion, and I appreciate your direct comments. And I would like to respond to two of them. The first one is why the North Peninsula and not our own residents. And the reason is what the health department said. And this is a copy of the 2013 study that the health department did. And they ranked every area in the county in terms of its suitability for septic. And they ranked them in terms of their three ratings, and I'll read them to you out of this. The green is best suited to remain on septic. Yellow is needs more investigation, and red is not suited for septic. And the areas, there are Knollwood as an example, their rating is 2.8, and the health department says it is best suited to remain on septic. Tidewater is a 3.0, best suited to remain on septic. And Broadwater is a 3.0, best suited to remain on septic. Hidden Hills is a 7.5, which needs more investigation. But when you compare that to Ormond by the Sea, which actually is three areas, the county, I think it was because of soil types, broke the North Peninsula into three areas. Their scores were 30, 32, and 34, not suited for septic. They are 3 of the 5 highest areas in the entire county. It's not even close. It's not even close. So while I 100% understand your motivation and your desire to put our residents, quote, our residents first, 3 of those areas are suited for septic. They're not, the health department is saying there is no reason to take the septic tanks out. And the one area, Hidden Hills, is a 7.5. It needs more investigation. So my attitude is we got to get the most bang for the buck. We got to do those things that will result in the greatest impact. And we have an opportunity on the North Peninsula to do something that, near as I can tell, isn't really being done anywhere. I don't know of any 700 home conversions, septic to sewer conversions. They're already our water customers. They're in our utility service area now. And I believe someday they'll be our residents. I mean, they're paying on the average, they're paying 9% more in ad valorem taxes than they would be if they were residents of Ormond Beach. County taxes are higher. So all that being said, I think this is something that we need to take the lead on, and it will be good for our river. I think Ms. Farmer said it when she said, you know, and I was thinking about that we know these political jurisdictions reasonably well, but the water doesn't. The water doesn't have a clue where the county line is and where the city line is, and the water doesn't care. And the other thing about septic tanks is that septic tanks, even a properly functioning septic tank, and I dare say that many of the septic tanks on the North Peninsula and drain fields are not properly functioning, but the soil is so incredibly porous up there that most people probably don't even know that it's not working. But even if it is properly working, it does not remove the nutrients. The phosphate and the nitrogen ends up in the aquifer and ends up in the water system. And A1A, Atlantic Avenue, is at about 15 feet above sea level. John Anderson is at about 5 feet of sea level, and all above sea level, and all the groundwater flows from the ocean to the river. So that's what doesn't end up in the aquifer ends up in the intercoastal waterway. And I just believe, you know, that we have a duty to step out, and we can do something now. The stars and the moon are aligning with the governor. The governor passed signed an executive order. It's Executive Order 2019-12. I have a copy of it. I read it. One of the things it does is it directs the Department of Environmental Protection to create a program to cost share with local governments on septic to sewer conversions, okay, in addition to all the South Florida and Lake Okeechobee and all that. But that's one of the specific items in it. I read in some of the legislative briefings that the governor asked for, I think it was $600 million or $625 million each of the next 4 years. And the House and the Senate are actually proposing more money than that for environmental issues. So I think that if we move this thing forward now, the legislative session next year starts January 14th. I've already talked to Representative Leak. I've talked to Representative Paul Renner. I've talked to State Senator Travis Hudson. All of them have told me that if we get this going and we can demonstrate our contribution, that we have money we have skin in the game, that they can get money allocated from the earmark from the state budget. And I really think we have the ability to create a model here that could be used in other parts of the state. And I just hate to not take advantage of this opportunity and not move this thing forward, because what I found, in the couple of years I've been working on this is everybody will talk to you. Everybody will talk to you, but you can't get a commitment out of them to really do anything until and unless we are shovel ready. And shovel ready means we have to design and permit that first phase, those first 702 homes. We've got to step out. It's a risk. We may not be able to get all these other partners, the county, the state, the DEP, possibly the feds. We may not be able to get any money from any of those, but right now I think that's highly unlikely. I think we'll be able to find money from a lot of sources. But we have to step out. We, the city of Ormond Beach, we have to engage an engineer to design and permit this first phase. Just the selection process could take 4 to 6 months on the engineer, because we have to do an RFP. And then it could take them, 9 months or more to do the design work. But because if we take this action, say next month, and we actually do that, start the RFP process, by January of next year, we will be so far down that path that we'll be able to say that, in however many months, we'll know how many months, we're going to be designed and permitted, and we want your commitment contingent upon us finishing that work. And I'm here to tell you that I believe that it will be there. And so the goal, at the end of the day, we don't know what it's going to cost. Everybody wants to know how much is it going to cost. We don't know what it's going to cost until it is designed and permitted and then put out for bid. And once we know that, then we know what the bogey is, how much money we need to raise to get that first phase done. And as much as we can get from these other partners reduces the share that the homeowners in the North Peninsula have to pay. And I'm also hopeful that, we can borrow money from the state revolving fund at very low interest rate, like 1% or 1.5%. And then we can loan that, and we can borrow it long term. We can borrow it like 20 years. And we can loan that to those residents to help them pay their share. And they could maybe that would be a little small additional amount on their non-ad valorem tax bill, on their annual payment. So I just feel like this is something that, and I totally understand where you're coming from, wanting to put our residents first. However, when you compare the relative importance of the North Peninsula versus these other areas in the city, they don't compare. They can't hold a candle. So I would respectfully ask, and I'm not sure if this is the appropriate time, but I would like to ask us to direct the city manager to come back to us on May 21st with a plan to get this moving, to get this North Peninsula septic to sewer project moving. I'm not sure if I don't even know if that's appropriate the way I'm asking that, Mr. Mayor.
I'm not sure this is the right item for that. I think that during the CIP process would be the time to approach that. Deputy Mayor, did you want to respond?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Commissioner Selby, I love your passion and your vision for what you're seeing here on our North Peninsula. And I say this, I know you know this, but the audience might not know. The audience, they know, but maybe those listening don't know. But we're on the same team.
Absolutely.
Same team. All 5 of us, we're on the same team. We want the same thing. And now the audience might not know this, and I haven't done the numbers, crunched them, but I think you and I have probably agreed on 98% plus of everything that's come before us since we've been sitting next to each other up here. We're on the same team. We agree. And I liked everything you said, and I took mental notes with everything. And when you talked about even the best septic systems, it doesn't take out the nitrogen and the phosphorus, It makes me scratch my head a little bit about the health department. I'm a little raw. They sent a good doc in up here to combat me years ago. We went round and round about fluoride in the water. They'll also tell you that fluoride, which is used as a rat poison in the water, is a good thing. But I'm getting off topic here, Mr. Mayor, and I don't want to do that. But the good doctor from the health department, we went round and round, and they told me that. And now they're also saying that septic, it's better to leave those septic tanks. But you and I are in agreement that even the best functioning septic tanks don't take out the phosphorus and nitrogen, and it's better, I believe, to be on a city sewer system. And I think I agree with what you're saying about the North Peninsula. I'm there, Mr. Mayor and Commission. I want that. But it makes me think, well, why aren't we tackling Oak Hill's issues? Why aren't we tackling Palm Coast issues? Is it because Ormond by the Sea is right next to us? Is that why we're doing it? Because our state representatives and our county council members, those are the districts that they represent. And I'm just going to lay it out there again. I mean, if I was a state representative or I was a county council member, I would be all over the area in my district for water quality improvements, conversion from septic to sewer, but I'm not. I'm Troy Kent, a city commissioner in Zone 2, deputy mayor. And I've got to worry about the residents of Ormond Beach. And I'm not saying no to what you're proposing, Commissioner Selby. I'm not saying no to that. I'm saying let's leverage Representative Renner, Senator Hudson. You know, we all have pictures with the governor when he was a congressman. You know, we know him on a first name basis. Let's get into the governor's office and talk to him, Representative Leak, and say, let's use those dollars and let's get these 560 that are Ormond Beach residents taken care of. Because I don't have a good argument when they ask me why I'm taking care of non-residents before residents. I don't have a good argument. Because I'm going to say because the study from the health department who says fluoride in the water is a good thing says that that area is worse off than your area. I don't know how that sounds. I mean, Pat, you're in the audience. I don't know how that sounds. You know, people beat me up over that, and I don't mind being beat up. I just like to have a good argument, a good reason why. And if I take care of Ormond residents first, none of which are in my district, but if I take care of all of these first, then I'm there with you. So we're on the same team. I'm with you, Commissioner. I want to get there. But, Mr. Mayor, I want to go back to what you said. And I think, and also, Commissioner Littleton brings up a good point, talking about the moving target, and it might be water, water, water the way to go. But, gosh darn it, that's not what the voters have been hearing about. They've been hearing about road projects. And I'm a little concerned about how that might shake out by us changing things. But you know what? That's life, and that's what happens, and we kind of move with it. So you all know where I am on the issue.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And did you want to respond?
Yeah, okay. Just one. You know, why Ormond by the Sea, and why not Oak Hill or Palm Coast or wherever? Number one, there already are water customers. Number two, they're contiguous. Number three, nobody else can do it. The county is never going to do it. They're not going to build a system up there. There is a private system that serves several hundred residents up there, and they have no desire to expand, or probably even the ability to expand. In fact, they've even, talked to us about selling their system to us. So we're the only ones who can do it, and most importantly, we already have the capacity in our system to do it, and we already have a preliminary design to do it. So that's why Ormond by the Sea.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yep. And now I finally get a chance to talk. Now that it's 8:24, no problem. It's been a good discussion. I think this is what you were looking for, Joyce.
Some wrap up at the end here to make sure I understand everything.
Yep. As far as I agree with the order: roads first, water second, stormwater and trails. And just kind of go in opposite order. The Thompson's Creek Trail would be one of my favorites because that's actually a linear park from Division Avenue to Lincoln Avenue in the heart of our city. It would be a great asset from a recreational perspective. The US 1 sidewalks, that's North US 1, correct? So that's would be new sidewalks going in an area where there are going to be businesses and new residents. I think it's appropriate to do that. So that would be my next favorite as far as the trail projects go. The Sanchez multi-use path, that stays within Sanchez Park. That would be a great addition as far as that goes. And then the Tomoka State Park Trail would be the one that's proposed from Sanchez up to the current. And that one I could do totally without. I understand that it would be a beautiful trail, but that is pristine, undisturbed, untouched nature right in the heart of a state park. And why would we, other than to allow people to ride their bikes through there, why would we ruin that when everything we're hearing from our residents is to conserve, conserve, conserve? That's It's just pristine, forested, true nature. And so if that trail never happened, I wouldn't lose a wink of sleep about that. And that's trail projects. Stormwater, certainly Central Park, the Phase 2 improvements, and the Fleming Avenue improvements. Those are some of the, if they've got to be the lowest areas in the city. I mean, whenever we get heavy rains, those areas flood, at least temporarily. And so that would be the most critical, most important. We're already taking steps to ensure that flooding never happens there again, but those would be the two most critical. And then at some point, the Phase 2 downtown stormwater master plan, I think, will happen, and so that'd be number 3. And since I'm going in reverse order, I'll cover water quality projects. Part of my position on the water quality projects, we haven't had the discussion or the opportunity to discuss annexation policy yet, but my theory or position on annexation policy would be that we would start out on North US 1 at Plantation Oaks, where we all were just at the grand opening last week, I think it was. Start there where the infrastructure has been put in, and then go north all the way to the county line, taking in east of 95, taking in Halifax Plantation. That's an area that is, those people think they're in Ormond Beach already. It's ready for annexation. The infrastructure is fairly decent there, certainly compared to the North Penn. It's far superior and would cost many less millions to bring up to Ormond Beach standards and run water and sewer up there. But from an annexation perspective, as far as the future of the city, the best route would be to take that area in first, and then maybe after the county has finally spent the millions and millions and millions of dollars to cure the horrible neglect that they have perpetrated on the Ormond by the Sea area, to bring it up to some reasonable standard where we might want to annex them, then I would look north to Ormond by the Sea to do the annexation there. But until that happens, I have a tough time spending Ormond Beach dollars to annex Ormond by the Sea, and that's just because it's such a financial boondoggle. It's been neglected for so many years, and a lot of those people don't want to come into the city. I've tried to talk people into annexing or to encourage them. There's a few people that do, but the by and large majority of them don't and are vocally against it, and have actually voted against it, I think, at least once, if not twice. And so when it comes to the water project up there on the North Penn, before I could vote to spend Ormond Beach dollars, I would want to see contingent contracts that would include cooperation from Volusia County, from the state of Florida, from the federal government, and the feds may not be interested at all. But before we spent $1 million on design and engineering, I would want to see the county chipping in a third of that at least, and the state chipping in a third of that, and then maybe I could see the city of Ormond Beach contributing a third to make that happen. And if we've got a preliminary design, why don't we take that and shop it to those entities to say, you guys have neglected this area for a long time, this could make a huge impact, why don't we together move forward? We'll work with you. We're not going to shoulder the full financial risk. We're not going to put that on our residents, but we're willing to work with you and move forward in that manner. And part of that also is the fact we have 2-year terms. So we could vote this year to spend $1 million, and next year we could all be gone. And the campaign could be, we're not annexing the North Penn, and you'll get 5 anti-water project, no North Penn project commissioners up here. And so you just wasted $1 million of taxpayer money, city money. And that's a real danger. If we had a 4-year term and you had 3 commissioners that were committed to that, that would make a little more sense to me as something that might be appropriate moving forward. But water quality is important, and to me, the place to start with the water quality projects is the Oak, Magnolia, and then Bonita, which I think is really Fiesta Heights. That would be the perfect place for Ormond Beach to start. Protect that Meisner's Branch Creek that flows right into the Tomoka River, which is a protected Florida waterway. And we have a lift station right there. So that's something that staff could fairly easily design. We could get started on. We could do that this year, fund it this year. I'm comfortable spending Ormond Beach dollars on Ormond Beach residents. And then, Commissioner Selby, that would prove that we can do it, maybe on a smaller scale than what we're looking to do down the road. But I challenge you to get those dollars and get those agreements from the other agencies that truly have an obligation to commit and improve that area up there that's been neglected for so long. And then if we show we can do it on this smaller scale, then we can move forward and possibly get it done on the bigger scale. So I think that is it as far as water. Oak, Magnolia, Bonita first. I'm comfortable doing Broadwater and Hidden Hills certainly next as Ormond Beach residents and spending Ormond Beach dollars on them. And then if we had some participation agreements where dollars would be included for design and engineering, I guess I'm saying I'm comfortable partnering with other agencies in moving forward on the South or North Peninsula. And part of that has to be, if we do that, if we're spending those dollars, making that investment, then those folks need to annex into the city of Ormond Beach, and the county needs to spend the money to bring the other infrastructure up there, the multi-millions of dollars that it's going to take to bring the infrastructure up to a reasonable level where we could set them in the city of Ormond Beach. So that's a lot on water. As far as road projects, Hand Avenue Extension, I think, is critical. I saw a little bit of the county's presentation on that today. We're going to be getting a similar presentation, and they cite the Hand Avenue Extension. And that's another one where I probably am not going to vote to spend a lot of Ormond Beach dollars unless the county, unless Daytona Beach, unless the state of Florida all participate in making that project happen. But it needs to be a priority. We've held it off as long as humanly possible, and it's time for that to finally happen. It just can't wait any longer. The Hand Avenue widening, I think, is part of that, and the Williamson Boulevard widening, I believe, is coming, but that would be important as well. The I-95 US 1 interchange is critically important. That intersection fails at a mind-boggling level every single day. It blows my mind what I see out there. But that is so expensive. I don't know, $130 million. I don't know where that one falls. Somewhere from 80 to 130 is where I would start with that. So I don't know if the half cent would even touch that, but that's certainly one that's on the radar. Nova Road diet, I think, is happening anyway. We do our own roadway reconstruction, but we could use some of those additional dollars to try to speed up the timetable. Timber Creek widening, I believe the county needs to do that and pay for it. I have no idea why they didn't do it when they were out there building that road. It makes no sense when you're driving out there, and it goes from 4 down to 2. It's just madness from a planning perspective. And so, Joyce, those are my thoughts, and I hope that you and or staff has all that they need. Do you want to do a wrap-up?
I would like to do a wrap-up.
That's right.
I hate to ask this, but could we take a 5-minute break, Mr. Mayor,
Sure.
so that we can...
We'll take a 5-minute recess. Just gonna huddle with her. Absolutely. Quiet, man. Oh my, really? You got full third, foot and left. Called back to order, and Joyce will go to you.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So what we tried to do is to look at the big picture first, and I think we heard clearly that the priority was roads, number 1, water quality, number 2, stormwater, number 3, and trail projects, a distant 4. So let's look at road projects. I think that there was, and we've really only highlighted the top 3 or 4 where we think there's real consensus, because quite honestly, there's probably not enough dollars to go around for everything. In particular, on the road projects, most of you all had indicated that these are important issues for you, but you expect and recognize that there needs to be considerable partnerships on these because these are mostly county or state roads. So the things that we heard the highest priority for were Hand Avenue Extension, and we didn't number these, we just highlighted them, Williamson Boulevard widening, Hand Avenue widening, and I-95 US 1 interchange. We did hear some support for roadway reconstruction, and we all recognize that the roadway diet, Nova Road diet, is in process. So do we have a consensus on this listing here, Mr. Mayor?
That looks good to me. That's what I heard.
Yes.
Anybody?
Looks good to me. Yes.
Great.
Okay. So moving on to topic number 2 was water quality projects. We heard from a majority that the septic to sewer projects in Ormond Beach should be the priority. So that would be Oak and Magnolia, Hidden Hills, and Broadwater. There's a few other projects that aren't on the list, but those can be part of another capital project. We did hear certainly that you all feel strongly that water quality is an important issue for this community, and you believe that Ormond by the Sea is an important component of that, but you feel strongly that you need community partners for that, so that was like a number 2 based on what I heard here tonight.
Was it Commissioner Littleton? Did you?
Yeah.
I don't recall hearing that.
Me neither.
I agree with doing Ormond Beach residents first, especially Oak and Magnolia, because it's so easy. We have a pipe there already.
Number 3 we heard was stormwater projects. Certainly the important part was the lowest lying areas of the city's Central Park and Fleming Avenue. And so those are highlighted, and perhaps a distant second or third, if you will, would be phase 2 of the downtown stormwater master plan. Okay? And then 4, we didn't hear any real support for the Tomoka State Park Trail, and we've shopped that around a couple of times, and there isn't really community support. We didn't highlight any of the other ones, but since that's a distant third, you might not have money to get there, but those are the projects on the list should you decide to move to that point.
Great.
So I think that captures it. If that's fine with you, then I think that that's what we'll take as our shopping orders.
Perfect. Thank you, Joyce.
Mr.
And with that, we will move to closing comments, and you knew we were coming right back to you, Joyce, right?
I do.
Okay.
I'll be brief tonight. There's a couple of important things. I have been in contact with the Volusia County School Board, and they are very amenable to a joint meeting. They gave us a couple of months. They prefer Thursdays. So the 2 Thursdays that we identified were April 25th and May 2nd. If either of those work for you, then we would try and work those 2 out. If not, then we would try to go down their whole list of dates. We run into like spring break and things like, end of school and that kind of stuff, graduation. And
Did you want us to be available for both?
if you tell me which one is better, I would prefer that.
Okay.
The 22nd's better for me.
So 25th.
22nd of May. Did you give us 2 days?
No, May 2nd or April 25th.
Mr. Mayor, April
May
20,
2nd then, sorry.
Okay.
May 2nd is better for me as well.
Thursday night.
Are we going to meet at the Persis home?
Sure. I don't think so. And they won't be able to talk to each other about this meeting.
April 25th. They both work for me, April 25th. Sooner is better than later.
Okay. There.
And May 2nd's fine with me.
Okay. Since it seems like I'm hearing a consensus for May 2nd, I'll try that as our first priority and then work on April 22nd as the second priority. Is there anything particular that you want on the agenda for that meeting?
Can we email that to you individually? If
That would
they're-
be perfect.
Okay.
Why don't you do that?
And not copy each other,
Do
obviously.
not copy anybody except me. So we have Earth Day on Thursday. There is a free tree giveaway. We have 500 trees to give away, about 200 live oak, 200 red cedar, and about 50 elm. They're 3-gallon trees, so please come to Earth Day. If there's any left over, then we'll have a secondary location for distribution of those trees. Likewise, on Thursday, we're having the Breakaway Trails Reclaimed Water Storage groundbreaking. That'll be Thursday, April 18th at 12 noon out of Breakaway Trails. So please mark your calendars to be there. We have the mayor going to provide some remarks. Commissioner Persis will be there to provide some remarks, and Carl Hankin, he is a PE with St. Johns River Water Management District, and they are giving us significant dollars for that project, so we will recognize him. National Drug Take Back Day is Saturday, April 27th. The city is advertising that highly. We've been very successful in making that happen in prior years, so we'll be putting that in the newspaper and whatnot. And Friday, City Hall is closed. It's been a holiday here forever. I don't know why, but so city facilities will be closed. Police and fire and emergency personnel will be available at that time. I do not have anything further. I really appreciate your patience with us tonight as we tried to work through this list, and that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, City Manager, and we move to our Assistant City Manager, Claire Whitley. Thank you, Claire. Thought you were throwing your
Anyway,
voice.
you had your chair turned backwards.
She's good.
I'm like, where is she?
Thank you. All right. And City Attorney Randy Hayes.
No, sir, nothing tonight. Thank you.
All right. And tonight we start with Deputy Mayor Kent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of comments this evening. First of all, I want to thank Lori Tolland for helping me so I can correct the comment I made earlier. I mentioned on Arbor Day that the Garden Club of Daytona Beach was working with the city and going to the schools and donating trees and helping with that whole thing. It is not that group. It is the Garden Club of Halifax Country. That's who it is. So I want to make sure that the record is corrected there. So,
Mr. Deputy Mayor Kent, if I might say, we have a whole list of those dates and would encourage, I'll send that to the commission, and if you're available for those tree plantings, we would love for you all to be there. So I think they're planting 3 trees at each of the 5 schools in Ormond Beach.
Awesome. Right.
And Seabreeze.
Right, absolutely. Next on my list, just because they walked in, I just want to give a shout out to Doug Thomas and Sally Thomas, and we have a street named after Doug Thomas, Doug Thomas Way, out there at the sports complex. And the more that I've gotten to know Doug, I've realized a big reason the way he is because of the woman sitting next to him, Sally. She's fantastic, and I like hearing your story. Yeah, right. I like hearing your stories about teaching first grade and kindergarten so many years. So anyway, glad you all made it. Mr. Mayor, we started the meeting tonight extremely positive. You were able to have read proclamations and celebrate the American Legion, St. Johns River Water Management District, Water Conservation Month. Those students from UCF with the Tomoka State Park Shoreline Stabilization Day. I don't know if anybody else noticed, but they were out of here around 7:10. And at 7:30, those youngsters were still out there taking selfies with the award. And, I know they look at it as an award, but with the accolades that they received here today, and I loved it. They were super proud of being here and proud of the work that they did, and it's a great, wholesome thing to see. You mentioned earlier, Mr. Mayor, the passing today of Reich 100 Mark. And I wrote down a couple of words, a couple of adjectives to describe him. Reich was a hard worker, great helper, a tremendous help for Ormond Beach and Main Street. The guy always had a huge smile on his face. Every time I met him, he had a huge smile. And, my thoughts and prayers go out to his family. And I was just telling Heather when I found out about it today that I could have sworn it was the last commission meeting he was here. And if it wasn't the last commission meeting, it was the one right before that. I was shaking hands with him out there, sitting right over there. So I'm saddened by that news. And then I'm gonna end tonight on a positive note, and I'm glad that Commissioner Boehm is still in the audience for this last one. But he brought this up months ago, and we all agreed to it. And I'm actually really pleased that the individual's not here anymore, but not here this evening. He left. He was here earlier. But Mr. Mayor, on Memorial Day, Ike Leary is going to have an event over there celebrating Memorial Day and his 20 years in business over there at the bait shop. And Commissioner Boehm had brought up at one time, and I believe all of us were in agreement. Commissioner Persis wasn't here yet, but she is now. But he had talked about naming that pier the Ike Leary Fishing Pier. And I thought it was appropriate for me to bring up this evening for us to give staff direction, because if we do that, staff will have time to bring it back to us before Memorial Day, and we could actually turn that into not only a Memorial Day celebration and a 20-year celebration, but a pier naming celebration for somebody who, and I don't want, if you want me to go into it, I can, everything that he has done, how he's an ambassador for the city of Ormond Beach, and what he means to this community, especially that area right there. So I'm going to end with that, Mr. Mayor, and if you would allow the commission to tell staff what their thoughts are, that'd be great.
Sure.
Thank you.
That sounds good to me. How does everybody else feel?
Sounds good to me.
Sounds good to me. And let's not tell them. Maybe it'd be a surprise.
Let's keep it a secret. That's right.
So no one tell him.
Commissioner Selby gave a thumbs up, so I think, Joyce, you have your direction on that.
Do I need to bring it back, or do I just
I
proceed?
don't know. I mean, if that's something we need to vote on, Randy, but if we don't have to vote on it, then you've got 5 right here saying yes, the Ike Leary Fishing Pier.
Right. You can do your secret planning in public if you want, and then if you feel the need to bring it back after the fact, you can do that. So you've got a lot of flexibility on it.
Okay, Joyce. So you know what to do.
Just make it happen.
Joyce, do we run it through LSAB just because that's the process, or
that's why Mr. Mayor? Yeah, that was the problem. LSAB is not meeting again in time to give us that, but I know that former Commissioner Boehm was on the top of his agenda to bring up, and he was concerned that we were going to miss this deadline.
I don't think you need to bring it back.
Perfect. Good deal. And we go to, that was it, Deputy Mayor? Yes, sir. Okay, go to Commissioner Persis.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, I want to thank my fellow commissioners for their first vote on the tethering ordinance. I'm very, very excited about it, and it's interesting. I've had so many calls from really all around. I even had a call from California. So people are really jumping on this, and I'm really excited about what the future of this is going to be. We're not going to stop, or I'm not going to stop with this. We're going to keep moving forward. So I just wanted to let you all know that. And I had the pleasure, my husband and I, Carl, who's right over here, we had the pleasure of attending the Celtic Festival Saturday, and it was just a lot of fun. It was packed. It was a perfect day. The weather was great, and just had a fabulous time. And I recently found out that my heritage goes back to the 1600s, to Scotland, actually, and so I was really getting into it and drinking mead, so I just will have to tell on myself about that. But it was really a lot of fun. And I do have to just say I'm very happy to see Commissioner Boehm here tonight. He almost wasn't here. He sent me, I have to tell on myself, he sent me a text today, and I guess I didn't read it properly. And what he was asking me was for a ride here because his car wasn't working, and I thought he wanted a ride home. And I said, sure, but we're going to go out to eat after. Anyway, he had to, I think, hitchhike here to get here because I didn't pick him up and I didn't misread it. So I want to publicly apologize to you. I feel terrible. I mean, he's like my dear friend and I feel really bad. So I want to say I'm sorry. I will pick you up anytime to come to a city commission meeting. We love having you here. So with that, I'll just end. Good night, everyone.
Thank you, Commissioner Persis. Commissioner Littleton.
Thank you, Mayor. The commission ought to know that the dedicated millage rate we have for road paving is doing its job. We're doing South Center Street near Hand Avenue right now, and it could have used it, and they performed their job excellent. Got it done in one day. Furthermore, I also attended the Celtic Festival, probably my favorite event of the year, at least. Ormond Main Street did a wonderful job over there. I purchased a sword. I did. And it's going to be hanging in my house next to my battle axe. But yes. Oh yeah. Well, and I enjoyed it so much. It's such a great event. I don't even know how many people attended, but when I was there early Saturday, it was packed and. The clouds, it was sort of overcast, so it wasn't too hot at the time, and it was a great event. And with that, I'll say good night.
Thank you, Commissioner Littleton. Commissioner Selby.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to comment about Jack Surratt and Reich Hundermark. Thinking about Reich, I remember when I first met him, I couldn't quite figure him out. And I don't mean this in a negative way, but most people they have a business downtown or whatever. They're somehow involved. And Reich, just what he was he was just a great guy who always was there to help, always had a smile on his face, always had a positive comment, and had a lot of very insightful perspective on things too. And he will definitely be missed. So that comes as a shock. And then Jack Surratt. When we lived in Sawtooth, the Surratts lived there I think they still live there for many, many years, and while our kids were growing up, and then, and so we got and we also went to church with Betty and Jack, the same church now known as the Lighthouse at Christ Presbyterian, used to be just Christ Presbyterian, and got to know them very well during that time, and know their daughter and their son-in-law, Terry and Terry, and their grandkids also. So Jack will be missed also. And then I just wanted to say that I noticed Joe Hanoush out in the audience, and Joe, you have a really good tan. I don't know, but you're looking good. Looking good. And I just want to comment on water quality. I'll close with a comment on water quality. It would be an understatement to say I'm disappointed. I'm far more than disappointed. But I respect your positions. This is a team sport. Nobody can do anything on their own up here. I'm disappointed that I didn't do a better job in communicating to you all the importance of what's going on. Or the opportunity that we have, but again, I respect your opinion, your positions, and so, maybe a possible solution. Some have suggested maybe there should be a task force to look into to get some outside input on this. I don't know if you all think that's necessary or not, but I could certainly support that. So, because I'm going to have a hard time supporting. Doing in the city just because, that ain't good enough for me, and especially when we've got a great opportunity, we got great timing, we got, now is the moment, and I guess the last guy didn't get a chance to respond to this, but there was a comment earlier about wasting money on designing the final design for those improvements. And in my opinion, they would never be wasted. Those plans would be valuable basically forever, because nothing's really going to change up there. There's not, those single-family houses are going to be single-family houses ad infinitum, and sewer systems are the same. So while it might not happen right away, it would happen at some point, and those plans would be good. So with that, I'll say good night. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Selby. Joyce, if we could offer to the UCF students a copy for each of them, if they want it, of the proclamation. That's a fairly easy thing to do, and for their records or whatever, they may want that. It was great to have them here, and working with them made me feel so good about our future. They are really enjoying and caring about what they're doing, and just watching them teach the children that were there that day and work with the children was very encouraging as well. I wanted to point out that Captain Scott Cornelius from the Tomoka Outpost gave me a discount on the Chief Tomoki pins for the UCF students. That was very kind to him. He didn't have to do that, but he did. He didn't give me a discount on the ones that I got for you guys, just so you know. But he works there at the Tomoka Outpost with his wife, Ashley, and their little son, Scotty, is there with them a lot of the times. They are the 2019 March of Dimes Ambassador family, and just a great family. Interesting thing about Captain Scott is he was on Bizarre Foods a couple years ago with Andrew Zimmerman, and they filmed it there at the park and ate some weird stuff, but that was interesting. And they've gone through tough times as a family. I think right around the time that little Scotty was born, we were heavy into hurricane season, and so their business was impacted by that. And Scott and I talked yesterday about water quality, talked about High Bridge and why they call it High Bridge, talked about the possibility of an inlet someday just north of High Bridge that might improve water quality. But it was an interesting conversation from somebody who's out on that water every day, and he certainly cares about Tomoka State Park. He's also very interested in seeing Chief Tomoki restored, and I just wanted to give the Commission an update. We continue to make community contacts. Commissioner Selby was kind enough to put me in touch with the Parks Council for that Northern Parks area. They're interested in helping. The Florida State Parks Foundation is interested in helping, and there's just a good amount of quality people who are already showing interest. I believe we can do it without city money, which would be the ideal situation. I think there's enough grant funding out there, and then private fundraising, which Captain Cornelius would be willing to help with as well, to make it happen. But for the people that have lived in this community for a long time, that see the archaeological, the historical, and the other value of restoring that, I think there's some exciting things happening, and so I look forward to seeing that. Wanted to give a shout out to Brian Rademacher, our Economic Development Director. The county meeting today, the little bit of it that I was able to catch, they did a huge segment on economic development, and Ormond Beach, Brian was there to participate and to help, and Ormond Beach was recognized a couple times as being a leader in the economic development process. And so, Brian, congratulations to you. Thank you for being there and all that you do in that arena. Doug and Sally Thomas. Sally must be a saint. 48 years of marriage. Congratulations. I think Doug said he was taking you to a food truck for dinner to celebrate. Can I say that out loud? When I came back from law school, I started going to Christ Presbyterian, where I had always gone, and was there every Sunday working as an usher. And there was one person that was there every Sunday and sitting in the pew, listening to the sermon, and it struck me watching that. That's kind of where I first learned what a good person Doug Thomas was. And I think Sally may have, sometimes she was there with him, sometimes I think she went to the later service, but this is at the early service, and I stayed for both. But you know, I've talked to Doug about that, how impressed I was with that. And so 48 years, God bless you guys, that is awesome. That's right, congratulations. Congratulations. Jack Surratt was my high school principal. Was he your principal? Not quite there yet. Okay. I was his junior class president, and he was, Commissioner Selby, an amazing person. He never asked for or took any credit, but he did so much for this community. I was proud to do a proclamation honoring him. And Joyce, I don't know if the rest of the commission saw that, but if you could maybe forward it to them just so they could see his amazing legacy in this community. They told a story at his funeral Saturday that when he won the West Virginia State High School Basketball Championship, the little town that he was in bought him a yellow sports car. They were so thrilled, and I guess basketball is really huge up there. And they wanted him to stay forever, basically. But he got an offer to come down to Daytona Beach, Ormond Beach, Seabreeze High School at the time, which straddles the line. A little bit of it's in Ormond, and maybe most of it's in Daytona. That might be an issue for our discussion, Joyce, about properly naming it the Ormond Beach, Daytona Beach High School. But he came, and the rest is history. He impacted thousands of lives with his leadership, and just like a basketball coach keeps track of each of his players, Principal Surratt kept track of each of his teachers, and he would recruit teachers. He knew who was going where, and he'd move them around and figure out how to get them to his school. And that's how he was able, on multiple occasions with Mainland and Seabreeze, to win the national, I think it's Blue Ribbon Award of Excellence for those. And so just an amazing man, and so our thoughts and prayers are with Betty and the family. And then Reich, I can't say anything more than what's been said, other than to add, I mean, my impression of him was just that he was a class act, 100%. Can't say much better than that. So with that, I will wish everyone a happy Easter and look forward to seeing you at some of the Earth Day events, and good night.